House Speaker Nancy Pelosi is officially calling for a 9/11-style commission to investigate the insurrection at the Capitol on January 6th. In a letter to House Democrats, she explains what is at stake, writing, quote, "Now, as always, security is the order of the day, the security of our country, the security of our Capitol, which is the temple of our democracy, and, of course, the security of our members."
The House Speaker is not the only one calling for an independent inquiry. In a letter to the President, Vice President, and congressional leaders, original members of that 9/11 Commission write that such an investigation is necessary and, quote, "It should establish a single narrative and set of facts to identify how the Capitol was left vulnerable, as well as corrective actions to make the institution safe again." Well, joining us now, the authors of that letter and members of the 9/11 Commission, Chair Tom Kean and former 9/11 Commission Vice Chair Lee Hamilton. Gentlemen, thanks so much to both of you for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If I could begin with you, Governor Kean. The 9/11 Commission was bipartisan. Its recommendations were accepted largely by both parties, and it dealt with a common set of facts, right? That was the starting point. The sad fact about January 6th is that there is still not a common set of facts. You have many Republican lawmakers who are still pushing the line that, this was Antifa, it wasn't really the Trump supporters, denying the president's role. I just wonder, can such a commission succeed without that starting point, right? One reality.
I think it can, and I think it has to. Because, look, when we started 9/11 war, there were not an accepted set of facts. There was a lot of confusion about what happened, who did it, how it happened, how it was allowed to happen, and a lot of arguments around the country, a lot of articles. And we had to do, almost a 2-year investigation to determine the facts. So the first thing we had to do was get that set of facts right. And once we had the set of facts right, then we could make our recommendations to make the country safer. And based on those 40 recommendations, the country's been safe from major attack since ever since. So it would.
Senator Hamilton, good morning. You're warning about the traps of partisanship, though, in all of this. And I think Jim does make a good point that even if there were not universally agreed upon facts, we are so much more divided now, and there's so much more reward for not getting along, oddly, politically.
Well, that's true, of course. I think we live at a time of very intense partisanship. Now, partisanship is not new. Partisanship can often be helpful in this country and has been in the past. But there are times when you have to come together. You have to put aside the partisanship and look at the problem or the challenge from the standpoint of what's best for the country. Tom and I believe very much now is a time when we have to come together. We have to understand what the facts were on that awful day. It was really scary to me to watch the people coming into the Capitol building, breaking windows, walking up and down the floors of the Capitol, going into chambers of the Senate and the House, and desecrating the Capitol, which is the temple, as you said, or the citadel of our democracy. We must take steps to prevent that from happening again. The very republic is at stake.
Governor Kean, to your point, and people forget, right, there were factual disagreements going into the 9/11 Commission, particularly about what warnings there were, what were missed, et cetera. I wonder, just in terms of the broader threat. No one questioned the threat from international terrorism after 9/11. Who could? Right now, though, you do have something of a partisan disagreement about the seriousness of the domestic terror threat here. If you speak to the FBI, I mean, they've been saying for years, at least their non-political appointees have been saying, this is a big deal. As you enter this, how concerned are you about the threat from these domestic extremist groups?
I'm very concerned. I think everybody has to be concerned after seeing what happened at the Capitol. Look, I'm concerned about any group that preaches violence. I'm concerned about any group that would invade as Lee has rightly called, the temple of our democracy. The Capitol is a symbol not only for us, it's a symbol around the world of democracy. So to have that defiled, this is enormously important. And you know, Lee is absolutely right as always. And the nonpartisanship or bipartisanship is very, very important here. And to find people, not who want Republicans or Democrats, but people who will talk to the other side, can cooperate, can work around the middle to get an agreement, and then again, make recommendations so this will never happen again. That's the most important.
Yep.
Coming from a Republican and a Democrat, you guys who worked together to get this done, and it has so protected our country since. Congressman Hamilton, you on the 9/11 Commission, you had subpoena power. And I wonder how important, you do mention it in the letter that you two wrote together, but how important is having that subpoena power and the ability to refer to DOJ?
Well, it's critically important. There are all kinds of investigations that are set up in Washington, but if you're really going to be serious, you're going to have to get information from people who don't want to give it to you. And you have to have the power to force them to give you the information. You can only do that through the power of the subpoena and the enforcement of the law. So it's critically important that the investigators have the resources, the money, if you will, and the legal power to force action. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to get the facts, as you must have if you're going to do an adequate job and try to prevent these things from happening again. That's the purpose, after all. We want to stop the efforts to disrupt the democratic process, and we are going to penalize those who try to keep information from us.
Well, gentlemen, we appreciate the work you're doing. It's important, and I think a large portion of the folks watching right now are eager for this kind of work. Governor Kean, Congressman Hamilton, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.